Ladies and gentlemen, our program is about to begin. Please turn your attention to the video screens for a special message from our Veterans Day ceremony sponsors.
Throughout our years, Ford has supported our nation's armed forces and honored their selfless service to our country. The Central Ohio Ford dealers are proud to continue this tradition by investing in the work of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in Columbus. Together, we want to share the veterans' heroic stories and introduce a grateful nation to the faces behind our forces. Please join us to hear inspiring educational stories from our veterans who have gone above and beyond their call to defend freedom around the world. The National Veterans Memorial and Museum and your Central Ohio Ford dealers. Together, we will never forget.
I have the deepest appreciation for all who have served or are currently serving our great country. And I'm incredibly proud of the work being done by the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. Although NVMM is based in Columbus, its reach is national, telling the history and stories of veterans from all branches of service across America. It's a place of inspiration, remembrance, and learning. It offers a unique experience you can't find anywhere else. Most importantly, it gives a voice to every man and woman who answered the call of service to our country. Coming here helps me and my family better understand and honor the journeys and sacrifices of America's veterans. One of the many things I appreciate is that the museum and memorial helps further the appreciation we have for our veterans, no matter our age. I encourage you to join me by investing in the museum's important mission as a corporate philanthropic partner and personally as a member. Together, we can celebrate and preserve the legacies of our American heroes.
Good morning and welcome to the National Veterans Memorial and Museum for our Veterans Day ceremony. Our Master of Ceremonies today is the Emmy Award-winning news anchor for NBC4 here in Columbus. Please welcome Colleen Marshall.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see a big crowd coming to spend this beautiful day with us, and I am so honored to be here to recognize and pay tribute to the men and women who have served in our armed forces. Please stand now, if you are able, for the posting of the colors by The Ohio State University's Army ROTC Color Guard, and remain standing for the singing of our national anthem by Stan Stein.
Please join me in singing. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please be seated. It is my pleasure now to welcome Chaplain Thomas Whiteman of the Ohio Air National Guard for this morning's invocation.
I invite you to join me as I pray. Calvin Coolidge said, "No person was ever honored for what he received. Honor has been the reward for what he gave." And today, Lord, we come together to do exactly that. Honor the women and the men of the United States who have said, "I will give." They gave their effort, their dedication, their freedoms, their comforts, and for so many, their lives. And so, Lord, we ask that you would be with us as we bestow on to our veterans the reward of honor they so greatly deserve. And lastly, God, we ask that you would be honored by all that we do and say here today. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Whiteman. Today's ceremony is possible because of the generous support of our presenting sponsor, Central Ohio Ford Dealers, with additional support from Nationwide, Honda, CAS, and Lane Aviation, and ongoing support from Battelle, the AEP Foundation, the Greater Columbus Arts Council, FedEx, and the Wolf Foundation. It's very important to remember that even though this place is a place of honor and carries the designation as the National Veterans Memorial and Museum, it is a 501c3. This is a nonprofit organization, and it relies on financial support from members, from donors, from sponsors, and from friends who believe in this mission. When you came into the museum today, you no doubt saw the hundreds of flags out there on the lawn. Each of those flags has been dedicated to honor the service of a veteran. If you'll take a look at your program, there is a QR code, and you can scan that. For a donation of $20 or more, you too can dedicate a flag to honor a veteran in your life. There are flags at the welcome desk if you'd like to dedicate a flag today, and there are volunteers who can help you do that. And we sincerely hope that you will consider making this kind of a donation that means so much to this organization, but also to the veterans who we remember here today. It is now my pleasure to introduce the acting president of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. Bill Butler is a 27-year career Army infantry officer with 3 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. His service continued after his return stateside when he joined the museum team in May of 2019 as the Chief of Staff. Please join me in welcoming U.S. Army retired colonel and the acting president of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum, Bill Butler.
Well, thank you, Colleen. Before we get started, I would like to recognize very special people in attendance. Do we have any Gold Star families who've joined us today? If you wouldn't mind raising your hand. All right, I don't see any. So those Gold Star families are those families who have lost a loved one in service to our country, and they're always very special for us here at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. I know we've got some board members John and Frederick, if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand. They provide the governance of the museum. They provide the leadership, the strategic vision, and they have been tremendously helpful for us since we've opened up. I know we've got some elected officials, if you all wouldn't mind raising your hands as well. Yep. Again, they are key members of the community who support so much of what we do here, and we can't do it without you all. And then sponsors and partners. We've got Nationwide, Fifth Third, CAS, Honda, Central Ford, Ohio. So thank you all for that. And then lastly, if all veterans could just stand up, please. Thank you all for your service. On behalf of Dr. Frederick Bertley, our board of directors, our staff, our volunteers, and our members, welcome to the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. Thank you for joining us as we commemorate Veterans Day. Two of our foundational pillars are honor and inspire. Honor the service and sacrifice of our veterans and that of their families, and we do this through storytelling. Through our storytelling, we want to inspire others to serve in some way. We want others to become part of something greater than themselves. We want everybody to know that service to our communities is, in many ways, service to our country. We share the stories of young men and women from all backgrounds, races, ethnicities, religions, socioeconomic conditions, who all have one thing in common. We all chose to serve something greater than ourselves. We raised our right hands and swore an oath of allegiance to the United States Constitution. Now, if you compare our oath of office or our oath of enlistment to that of our greatest allies, the UK, France, Germany, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, they all swear oaths of allegiance to a president, a king, a queen, a premier, or a country. We swear an oath of allegiance to a piece of paper and an idea and an ideal in the U.S. Constitution. We don't swear an oath of allegiance to any one person. By swearing this oath, we put aside our backgrounds and our differences. We were unified with a great sense of purpose and a sense of mission. It's not about, at this point, it's not about you or me, the individual. It's about us, the team, and our mission. And I firmly believe that when men and women join the military and serve their country, their families also make a tremendous sacrifice and serve in so many ways. The families didn't choose to serve our country. They chose to love somebody who did. So if all the family members of a veteran could also stand up, please. Were it not for you, we wouldn't be able to serve and sacrifice and miss so many key moments in our lives and that of our families. So today we're going to hear from an amazing veteran, and he's going to share some of his stories of service and sacrifice and hopefully inspire everybody here. So I'm now pleased to introduce President Ted Carter, the 17th president of The Ohio State University. Since joining The Ohio State University, President Carter has dedicated his time to learning about the university community, getting to know its people and its traditions, and understanding what makes this university uniquely great. It continues a collaborative approach to leadership he honed during a 4-decade career in higher education and in the United States Navy. Before becoming a Buckeye, President Carter led the University of Nebraska system, the U.S. Naval Academy, and the U.S. Naval War College. He's a retired vice admiral and naval aviator who has given 38 years of service to our country and logged more than 6,300 flying hours. President Carter also has a passion for Ohio State's land grant mission and is committed to leveraging the university's size and expertise to improve the lives of Ohioans and shape the future of higher education. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to President Ted Carter.
Bill, thank you for that introduction. It's great to have you running our National Veterans Memorial and Museum. And what a special day and an honor it is for both myself and my wife Linda to be here in Columbus, Ohio at this national asset. It's not lost on me how important this is to our state and to our nation a day like today. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, hostilities were declared to end in the First World War. President Woodrow Wilson, 1 year later, on 11 November of 1919, would declare that Armistice Day to recognize those Americans who had served in World War I. In 1938, Armistice Day would become a national holiday. In 1954, retired five-star general and then President of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower, would change Armistice Day to Veterans Day in honor of the conclusion of the largest mobility and biggest war, World War II, and the end of the Korean War. So this is a day that we not only thank those who have served in our armed forces, it's a day that we remember the difference that veterans make for our nation. This is an important day. And for me personally, my dad's oldest brother, who has long since passed, my Uncle Pete, served under George Patton in World War II in the 3rd Army. My brother served in the Marines in Iraq. Our son, Chris, served in the Army and deployed to Taji. And yes, I served 38 years. I'm proud to say that I wore the cloth of the nation as a naval officer, as a flyer, as an aircraft carrier captain, and as an admiral for 10 years before I turned my career into higher education. So this is a special day for our family, our first Veterans Day to be here in the great state of Ohio and to spend this time with each and every one of you. You know, as I reflect on the importance of not only Veterans Day, but what this museum has come to represent, because it goes well beyond just World War I. It honors our veterans going all the way back to the founding of our nation. And the state of Ohio is no stranger to events that shaped our nation, our military, and quite frankly, the world. Just 2 hours away from us here, on the coast off of Cleveland and Lake Erie, one of the most amazing battles that determined us as a military power in our country occurred. It was the Battle of 1812. After we had already declared independence, become a nation, we began to reshape our Navy with the original 6 frigates. And it was in June of 1813, as that battle was going on against our British adversaries, the Navy captain named James Lawrence was mortally wounded on board the USS Chesapeake off the coast of Boston. And as he lay there dying on the deck of that ship, his last words, "Don't give up the ship." It would become a rallying cry. And a Navy Commodore from Newport, Rhode Island, my own home state, Oliver Hazard Perry, was good friends with Captain Lawrence. In fact, he would name his flagship the USS Lawrence. And he created a flag, a blue-black background with white letters that said, "Don't give up the ship." As he brought that flotilla of US Navy ships into Lake Erie against the best Navy the world had ever seen, the British Navy, they defeated them. They were outmanned, outgunned, outmaneuvered, and that battle cry became this idea that is not just for the Navy, it's for all of our military, and really our way of life as Americans. We never give up, no matter the odds. They won that battle. It changed the tide of the war, cut off supply lines, and it established us as an American military and maritime power. Now, as I think about the importance of our veterans today in the United States, 18 million strong. Our American military today is one of the smallest we've had, dating back to World War II, with less than 1% of our men and women serving in uniform today. And yet, I would tell you that our American military today is as strong as it's ever been. As I think about the veterans that are here in the state of Ohio, just under 650,000 strong. We're the 5th largest population of veterans of any state in the country. Bigger than New York, bigger than Virginia, and just a little bit less than the veterans in the state of Pennsylvania. So this is a state that embraces its veterans, and I am proud to be part of that with you. This past Friday, I was installed as the 17th president of The Ohio State University, a very proud day for not necessarily me personally, but I think for the future of our university, our state's flagship university. We laid out a 10-year plan based on a motto that we took on in 1938. The 6th president of Ohio State, George Washington Reitmeyer, took that motto on, called Education for Citizenship. It's this idea of service. It's not disconnected from the idea of military service. And of course, as I watched our Army ROTC up here present the flag, it wasn't lost on me that, when we were founded as an academic institution in 1870, we started our first classes in 1873 with a class of 24, all part of agriculture. We were also a military and science academic program. Our first military science and tactics course was taught in 1874, 150 years ago. And yet, as we've become a very military-friendly university, we're one of the top 25 in the nation. I declared on Friday that we intend to be the best university for military veterans. That is our intent. And we will, yes, it's okay, you can clap for that. Because with a little over 1.2 million active duty men and women serving now in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, Space Force, the Coast Guard, the National Guard, the reserves as well, 200,000 are transitioning out of uniform every year. And 3 in 4 of them, the first thing they're looking for is to get a degree. Most of our officer corps today, of course, have college degrees, but only 17% of our enlisted corps have a post-secondary degree. I want The Ohio State University to be the very first choice that those transitioning men and women, as well as our active duty forces, when they want to finish a college degree, I want them to be thinking about The Ohio State University. That's one way that we can help and continue to serve our veterans. Now, as I look out across this audience here today, I don't know, do we have any World War II veterans here in our audience today? Do we have any? If you do, would you please raise your hand? As many of you know, that population is really dwindling. We're less than 50,000 living World War II veterans in our country today. Korean War and Vietnam War veterans, would you raise your hand for me, please? I know we have quite a few, yes. I want to talk about the service right now of Korean and Vietnam War veterans. I think that they are a little bit of a forgotten group of veterans. The United States has been trying to do right by them. They're the ones that didn't necessarily get the ticker tape parades when they came home. A lot of us that were Gulf War veterans certainly got to enjoy some of that. But it isn't about just restoring faith in what those veterans did for our country. It's not just a recognition of what they did in service at a time that we were not volunteering people for service. It's the impact that they made. It's the impact they made for democracy, for freedom, at a time where we still have a North Korea, but it's more isolated than ever. And for the Vietnam veterans, we think about the fall of Saigon in 1975. There would be some people that would argue that that whole war was a lost cause. I will tell you, as having been the president of the U.S. Naval War College, where these things are studied, it couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, Vietnam today is still technically a communist country. It is now no longer a North Vietnam and a South Vietnam. And yet, as we think about what freedom of navigation of the seas, the battle for the territorial waters in the Pacific Ocean, what the defense of Taiwan might look like should that time ever come. A key partner in all of that today will be the country of Vietnam. They are more friendly to the United States than they've ever been. Having worked with them personally, they're replicating our education system, they're replicating our service academies. They're looking for more open border access between our two countries. And technically, we consider them an ally. That would not have happened, even though we're now approaching 50 years from the fall of Saigon, without the dedication, without the sense of service, without the love of our country, and with the understanding of what that impact might be. We have a tendency to want to know the lessons of history within days, weeks, hours, maybe months. We need to let this still work itself out. For me personally, I joined the Naval Academy in 1977, so I was just after the end of the Vietnam War. I was commissioned in 1981, and I went to go to flight school and then become a flyer. I flew in the F-4 Phantom, which was the backbone of not only the Air Force and Marine Corps, but the Navy during Vietnam. I was taught how to fly by the men who flew in Vietnam. I went to Top Gun in 1985. I was influenced by those that flew in the Vietnam War. They're the ones that taught me the tactics, the procedures, how to win in combat. Men like Muggs McEwen, Jack Fingers Ench. Jack Fingers Ench is still alive and lives in San Diego. Willie Driscoll, who was Duke Cunningham's backseater, the only Navy ace of the war. They're the ones that taught us what it meant to win in high-end, intense combat. And for myself, I would fly 125 combat missions. I was successful in leading men and women in my squadrons and my ships because of what I learned from those Vietnam veterans. So on behalf of myself and all those that have flown, I want to say thank you to our Vietnam veterans. Your service should never be forgotten, and we should honor you more and more as the years go on. So please join me and give a round of applause. I was very fortunate. I served 38 years in the Navy. I actually flew in fighter jets for 35 of those 38 years. My last operational flight was just a mere 12 years ago. And I often hear about people talking about whether this generation of men and women are as tough or have what it takes to win in tough situations. As you can imagine, I have quite a few sea stories. I could tell you a lot of stories about what it was like to be under fire in different places like Kuwait and Iraq and Afghanistan and Kosovo. But I do want to just tell you this one short story. It'll give you a sense of the talent that we have that are not only flying on our aircraft, but taking care of our aircraft, that are operating our ships, that are serving on the ground, at sea, in space, in cyberspace. I was flying in the backseat of an F-18 Super Hornet. Yep, the same airplane that's in the new Top Gun movie. And I was flying with a very young pilot, no different than what you see in the movie. Very talented. By the way, he's gotten out of the Navy and is now a medical doctor. So again, there's that kind of talent. He was like 27 years old. And he knew more about that airplane than I ever knew about an F-14 Tomcat or about an F-4 Phantom. And our mission was to fly into the Arabian Sea, into the Iranian Sea. And we were counting on ships that were moving, oil tankers. And we were hundreds of miles away from the USS Enterprise, the aircraft carrier, a 51-year-old aircraft carrier on our last deployment. The weather looked just like it does outside today. It was hot, it was in the summer, and we developed a fuel transfer problem. We couldn't move fuel out of our tanks. They were partially emptied. And the rules were you couldn't land an F-18 Super Hornet on an aircraft carrier with partially full tanks. We weren't allowed to just punch them off. So we were going to go land on a field in Bahrain. Now you can imagine, it was a pretty big deal to put a high-performance tactical jet aircraft down on a runway in Bahrain. And as we were approaching the landmass, we could see a dust storm come. And it was so dramatic, and it was moving. and it was completely covering and almost zero visibility. We quickly realized we were not going to be able to outrun this major dust storm, but we knew there was a classified air base that was in the southern part of the island of Bahrain. So now we're racing at 500 miles an hour to get out in front of this storm, and we're running low on usable fuel. And as we turned south to north to make our approach to this runway, highly classified, we had Navy jet aircraft there, the storm overtook the runway. There was no precision approach into the runway, and now we were low enough on fuel, we weren't sure exactly how we were going to land or how long the storm would last. Now, because I had been taught by those amazing men from that Vietnam era, I was always taught to think just a little bit out of the box. And as talented as my young pilot was, he hadn't actually considered that we had one of the best GPS systems that you could have in an aviation aircraft. So we dropped a waypoint to the end of the runway, and we did our own precision approach, self-contained, in the cockpit of that airplane without a controller talking to us. My pilot never saw the runway as we touched down on it in the middle of a dust storm. And it didn't matter. It was just as if we could have seen it from 10 miles away. And that happened because of the talent that he had. He not only saved that airplane, he saved my life. And of course, the fix was like a 3-minute fix. We got the fuel flowing, we filled the airplane up, and went back and landed on the aircraft carrier. It sounds like just another normal day at sea on an aircraft carrier, but I would tell you it's not. It's never been lost on me the talent that we have and our young men and women that are out there serving, protecting our democracy, protecting our freedom. You know, as I close, I want to think back to another challenge that we're seeing today in our country. We've lost faith in a lot of the big institutions across the United States. And I'm not just talking about elected officials. I'm talking about the medical community, the pharmacies, higher education, which I've spoken to, but even the military. And it's having an impact on recruiting. So as we all think about what we can do for the future of our nation, again, with less than 0.5% of our Americans serving in uniform today, we can all be ambassadors for the importance of service. And I reflect back on the beginning, again, of our nation. Captain John Paul Jones, arguably the father of our Navy, as he was trying to recruit young men back in 1777 to go to sea. Pretty tough task, serving on wooden ships and sails with cannon and musket. Not a long life in that kind of work. But he knew he had to recruit, and he knew it mattered. So he walked all over the streets of Boston and Providence and New England to recruit. And the words that he spoke in 1777, 247 years ago, I think still resonate today. And yes, we're talking about the ocean, but you can translate that medium into air, land, sea, space, or cyberspace. These were his words. Sign on. Come sail with me. The stature of our homeland is no more than a measure of ourselves. Our job is to keep her free. Our will is to keep the torch of freedom burning for all. To this solemn purpose we call on the young, the strong, the brave, and the free. Heed my call. Come to the sea. Come sail with me. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you for being here today on this very special day. May God bless our veterans, their families, and all who support our veterans. And may God bless and protect our men and women who are standing the watch today all over the globe to protect the very freedoms that we have here today. God bless each and every one of you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Oh, come on, I have to follow that. Thank you so much, President Carter. Your remarks were remarkable and so well appreciated. Can we have another round of applause for President Carter? That was excellent. We do want to take a moment to acknowledge any of our public officials who are with us today. Is Senator Herschel Craig here? And Stephen Cook, I believe, is here from the office of Senator and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. Columbus City Council member Nancy Day Ackauer. And Columbus City Attorney Zach Klein. Thank you to all of our public officials who were here today. The 122nd Army Band is now going to play the Armed Forces Medley. And here's what we want you to do. As your branch song is played, we invite you, if you are able, to stand and be recognized. Again, it's the 122nd Army Band. They have been playing here all day. What a remarkable job you've done. Thank you so much. They've got to be tired. And I was really happy to see that George Washington could be here with us today. As we approach the end of the ceremony today, we do want to take a moment to thank all of those whose generous support and time makes days like this possible. Thank you again to our presenting sponsor, Ohio Ford Dealers of Central Ohio, with additional support from Nationwide Honda, CAS, Lane Aviation, ongoing support from Battelle, the AEP Foundation, the Greater Columbus Arts Council, FedEx, and the Wolf Foundation. As we said, this is a 501c3. This is not a government-funded organization. It is a nonprofit. I want to remind you again, if you can, sponsor one of the flags to remember either a veteran in your life or any veteran who has served this country. We do want to give another round of applause to the 122nd Army Band. Also to the Ohio State University Army ROTC Color Guard. Stan Stein, a remarkable job with our anthem today. Stan, thank you. Chaplain Thomas Whiteman for being with us from Rickenbacker. Thank you, Chaplain. And Brainstorm Media for putting this all together and doing a webcast production. Thank you, Brainstorm Media. We also want to thank the volunteers and the guests of companies that go the extra mile: Google, T. Marzetti, NetJets, and Fifth Third Bank. Thanks to all of them for their support today. And we also want to thank again Bill Butler and the entire team here at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. You give us so much to be proud of, so thank you for your service and for what you're doing here at the museum. And of course, our outstanding keynote speaker, the president of the Ohio State University. I have 2 kids, a son with an undergrad, a daughter with 2 masters from there. You've got a lot of my money, Mr. Carter. Ted Carter. And it has certainly been my pleasure to be with all of you today. Veterans, service members, thank you for your service. This city is very proud of all of you. And we want to bring Bill back up because Bill has one more announcement to make before we go. But thank you for letting me be part of this today.
Colleen Marshall, everybody. We forgot to acknowledge and thank her. Wonderful, wonderful job. So today we're excited to announce a new initiative here at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. It extends our ability to collect and share veteran stories across the nation. It builds on our foundation as a storytelling museum. We partnered with StoryCorps and its Voices of the Military initiative to record, preserve, and amplify the stories of our nation's veterans. StoryCorps is a national nonprofit dedicated to illuminating the humanity and possibility in all of us. They supported the creation of a special collection for the NVMM in the StoryCorps archive at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. All those touched by military service, including active service members, veterans, spouses, children, friends, and members in the community, are invited to participate. By adding your conversation to the NVMM story collection, it becomes part of the NVMM, and it broadens the stories we share for generations to come. Our first wave of archivists will be students whom we are working with at Olentangy Shanahan Middle School and Olentangy Berlin High School. It's going to equip teachers to help students connect with veterans in their communities. Contributing to the NVMM story collection is an opportunity to help veterans feel that the value of their service resonates with the younger generations. It gives students an opportunity to participate in intergenerational learning experiences and to become part of the next generation of storytellers. And today you can help us launch this initiative too. If everybody in the audience records just one story today of a friend or a loved one, we will add more than 250 news stories to our library. So take out your phone and scan the QR code right here on the screen to save our page as we get started. You can also visit our website at nationalvets.org and click on the Education tab to learn more. Color guard, please retire the colors. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. Before we actually finish, I just want to give another round of applause to our staff. We've been going for, I think we're on day 10 or day 11 of activity and event and program after program after program, whether they're in the morning, here at the museum, out in the community, in the evening. And they've been going a million miles an hour. So please, one more round of applause to our staff. So we invite everybody to explore the museum if you've got time. Thank you again for joining us, and thank all of the veterans for your service to our community and to our country. Thanks.